String functions. I want to walk you through some of the major string functions that are attached to the string data type. Okay, so since string is not a native data type, it's actually a class, there are functions attached to that. So I want to walk you through some of the major ones. Real quick, a real quick review of our variables here. I've got 3 string variables going on. We're going to load these 2 with values and then use this as a temporary storage space. I have an int value, which we're going to use to calculate the length of our string. And I have a char value here. So we'll show you how to pull out a char. So let's work our way down through the program. As you can see here in our program here, I'm going to load in these 2 words into our string, and just to print out there, you can see just a straight print line out of the content for X input string. Let's work our way down a little farther here. Let's talk about how to get the length of a string, because a lot of times it's important to know how long that string is, and we can use that to manipulate different indexes and positions of that string. So to get the length of a string, okay, we'll pull up our string variable. Now all these methods are attached to a string variable. So if you're using a string variable, these are all attached to one. So if we do dot length, this is actually going to pull out the length of the string as an integer, okay, and store that. Now this is the actual length of the string. So for instance, if we have a string called dog, okay, the actual length is 3, okay, but the positions start at 0. So it's 0, 1, 2. These are the positions of the letters, which start at 0, but the actual length is 3. Okay? And it's always an int. Let's work our way further down into the program here. So a lot of times if we're working with strings, and especially if we want to compare them to another string on that, it's easier to compare them if they're in the same case. So a lot of times we can either convert them to an uppercase or to a lowercase. And if you see here, all we have to do is do to uppercase or to lowercase, okay? And that'll convert those to a upper or lower case, depending on which one we use. And once again, we can save it back into our variable on that. So that's how you can convert your strings to upper and lower cases. Let's work farther down into our program. Let's look on how we can replace characters within a string. Okay, and to do that, we're going to actually use the replace. Okay, so in this string up here, we're going to place the G with the B. So currently, this is what we have in our string. Okay, so we're going to actually then replace the G with the B, so this is what we'll end up with. Okay. Now I want to show you something here with this next one. We're still using the replace. Okay. But in input string 2 here in this variable, this is what our variable is, right? It's feed, but then we're going to replace it with an O. Okay, so what I want to point out to you is the replace is global. So every time it sees an E, okay, no matter where that E falls or how many there are, it's going to replace that with the O. Okay, so it's a global replace. So you want to be aware that when you're manipulating strings using the replace command. So the replace, okay, and your first character is what you're looking for. The second one is what you're going to replace it with. Okay, let's look at retrieving parts of a string. So let's go and look a little farther down into our program here. So what we have here is substring. Okay, and we can write this two different ways. So the first part of this is saying look at position 3 and return to the end of the string. So currently for this string here, this is what we have in there. Okay, let's just look at our positions 0, 1, 2, 3. So it's going to go to the third position and it's going to retrieve everything out to the end. So that'll actually return that. Okay, so that's the first way we can use substring. Now we can put another parameter with that. Okay, so let's just look at how we're going to do that here. So in this first part here, if we're looking at substring, and here we're going to say start at the beginning position and we're going to end at the third. Okay, so it's going to stop before that, and this will actually pull out that. This will start at the third position and pull out to the end. Okay, and look down here what I'm doing. I'm starting at the third position, but if I don't know the end position or the end length of our expression, look here, I can put our variable back in here and I can use the dot length. And since length returns an int, okay, and these have to be ints, this will work. So that's one way you can use the dot length within an expression. So that's how you can use the substrings to pull out different parts of the strings. Let's go a little farther. So the question is, how can we get a char? Okay, so here's how we can retrieve a char out of a string. We're going to use char at, and this is the index of the position again. Okay, so once again, if the person entered dog, that first position is 0, 1, 2, so it's going to retrieve a D. Okay, currently we have this in our variable. Okay, so we're at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we told it to go to the third position. That's this one right here, and that's going to retrieve a P. Okay, so what that's going to do is retrieve the letter at that particular spot with char at, and then we have to store it into a char variable. So that's how we can retrieve chars. Let's look at one last thing here. How do we compare strings? Okay, so what we have for strings here is something a little different. We have to use the dot equals, okay? Because string is a class and ultimately an object, okay? It's not a native data type, okay? So it's not a native data type, so we're going to have to use equals, okay? So if we want to compare the value of the string variable to that, we're going to have to use the dot equals. Once again here I have the string value using the dot equals comparing a literal on there. So that's the only reason why we use something that's different here for string, because string has to use the dot equals. If we're using the other data types, you know, like char and double, int, float, etc., then we can use the double equals. Okay, but string is not a native data type, so we have to use the dot equals to check for equality. And those are the major string types, the string function methods connected to string.